Hi, this is Kim Watson on Monday the 29th of October. Now the time here, well, we've jumped back an hour, or fell back an hour through the weekend. It's currently 7:54. If you're in New York, it's only 3:54. Tokyo, well, 16:54. So we have, as I say, jumped the hour, or dropped the hour back. So I believe the US changes next weekend. So if you're wondering why this is at a different time, there you go. So usual time for the European traders, and well, what we've got in store for today, looking at the euro dollar first. And well, at the moment it put in a reasonable reversal day on Friday, and it does look like it may pitch up towards the weekly pivot at the moment. Now, so at the moment these things change. It's still in a downward trend. You look at the lower highs, lower lows that are sitting through this from this 4-hourly chart. It could pitch up towards that weekly pivot. In doing so, it will break the recent high and confirm a higher low, which could be the start of something different, or a change of the trend there. So just we may be seeing a bit of a bounce in these forex markets, but we'll shouldn't count on that too quickly. Let's just watch the price action this morning and see if we can get up towards that weekly pivot. If it starts breaking down below the daily pivot, well, I'll be looking down towards the S1 pivot and looking at Friday's lows. So that would be the targets if it breaks the daily pivot through the 50 and maybe 34 if we can get through that, but that's pretty flat, so I would expect it not to provide too much support. Okay, that's the euro dollar. Looking then at the pound dollar. Now, we don't have a lot of data coming out today, I should say, before I crack on to this, in terms of we've got net lending to individuals this morning, and very low key data in real terms for the UK, and then later for the USA at 1:30, as I say, UK time, that we've got the core PCE, personal spending, etc. coming out. Now that does create a little bit more interest, that news on at 1:30, because of they're looking for inflation and looking at the spending power of consumers. So that will have potentially we may see some volatility, I should say, around that. But for now, for the pound, well, the other thing, it's not on the I noticed it's not on the list here, but approximately at 3:30 p.m, about 11:30 US Eastern, we've got the UK budget speech, so by the Chancellor of the Exchequer. So that's at, as I say, around about 11:30 Eastern time, at 3:30 UK time. Okay, so what about the pound then? Well, pound got the potential again, weekly pivots above. This is often a draw. Got the potential for a retracement to that. It's not being quite so consolidated, or I say consolidated, so bullish on Friday. I'll just come back to Friday, sorry. It did a reversal buy into the monthly S1 there. So it's holding its own at the moment. It could, in the bigger picture here, still come up towards that weekly pivot and still it's still in a downward trend. It's still got something to do on this daily basis. In the shorter time frames, it might start putting higher lows in, as the euro's looking like it might do, if it does get back to that weekly pivot. Now, if I just come out here, and you can see how flat it is at the moment through today, yesterday, Friday's trading through Sunday evening, and this morning. It's pretty flat here. Have got the daily pivot that may just give it the springboard for any bounce. If it breaks beyond that, well, I'd be looking towards the lows. You can see that, as I say, it's quite consolidated where we are. The prices and the price action may just wait until the Chancellor has spoken later today. Okay, there's the pound. Looking at the dollar yen. So, well, it broke and closed below that trend line on Friday. Now, we've been seeing, I'll come on to the S&Ps very briefly, but the S&Ps have been selling off. There's money running to looking for safe havens. And well, the yen's doing quite well from being a safe haven, and it's, as I say, it's closed below that. That could trigger further downside. Now we have found support into the monthly S1, the pivot, the moving average, the 500 moving average there may be enough, but technically there's little else around that sort of area. So if it does start selling off here, we could see a continuation of this move. It's a rounded sort of price action here with more recent lower highs, lower lows. It's already pitched into the weekly pivot there, so this could come off some more this morning. We see the strengthening in the pound and the euro. It would generally be normal to see strengthening of the dollar, of the yen, so we'll see the weakening of the dollar here potentially. So it has the potential to roll over. It rolled over sharp last Friday there. It may continue in that sort of zone. Okay, that's the dollar yen. Aussie dollar. Well, the Aussie dollar, it's trying to pitch out. It made a new low last week. It pitched into and broke the previous week's lows there. Made new low. Has from that managed to. I mean, it's probably taken all the orders out from below those prices, and it managed to bounce. And at the moment, it's looking teeing up something maybe a bit more upside. However, the spoilers probably are the weekly pivot still sitting below, and statistically that has a high probability of being hit. And just looking at the price action, yes, it may follow the likes of the euro and the pound in terms of this early stage, but weeklies and daily pivots sitting below may be a draw at some point. Okay, and finally on the currencies here, the Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar, it's started to trigger the it's the setup in terms of potential long side. I've talked about this for some time. I'll talk about it in a weekly update later today. But it's starting to break this expanding wedge pattern here, so has got chance of pushing further. It may be, I mean, the weekly pivot's just below. I'm sitting here waiting to see if it comes off of that weekly pivot to push on upwards. But it has looked weak. It's got the higher lows and higher highs. That's the Canadian dollar looks weak against the US dollar. US dollar looking slightly stronger against it. A bounce off this area, this combination of an area here with these prior highs, etc., may be a decent point of an entry for the long side. Okay, that's the Canadian dollar. I will look at the S&Ps because we're still coming off. I keep getting asked questions on the S&Ps. I don't cover them too much, but I will, just to show you what's happening with the indices as a guide and use this as a benchmark. So what's happening here? Well, yep, there's potential on the dailies there. There's divergence sitting there on the RSI there, but looking at the bigger picture, it's still showing me on this 4 hour, I say bigger picture, shorter time frame, it's still showing me lower highs, lower lows. Yes, we've got the weekly pivot above, which may be a draw if it has the strength to get back up there, and it may be a sell point, just coming down from here. Even if it runs towards that, where again, a bit like the euro, it may just sort of pitch in there. In fact, this will struggle to put a new, well, you could argue it actually will put a higher low in with the price action we've seen here. So maybe a bounce in store. We'll see if it does. It's really looking for the short side, I think, at the moment on the futures. It still does look weak. But we'll see how the week runs out there. But certainly for today, it's still looking weak at the moment. Okay, that's it for me. Non-farm payrolls later in the week. Lots of data to come out later. Today I will release a weekly outlook and with all the data to look out for this week. Have a great one. Bye for now.